We're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also, this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private, but what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well.
Hi everybody, this is your host, Rob Harris, and this is WTF Crypto News. Now, I've taken a break for a period of time. I'm now making videos again, and this is actually my first video that I'm making that's covering central bank digital currencies. I know many people have at least heard CBDCs before, but there's a lot of information out there that I know a lot of people have not seen yet, and I've done my best to take a bunch of clips and compact it into this video to give you a nice broad view of what it is and how that's going to affect our daily lives, and how really this is something we should be not accepting. It is frightening to think if we end up in a world of central bank digital currencies, what that's going to do to our freedom. And I do believe in the end it's not going to succeed. I do show many different clips from many different people so you can get a nice broad view of this topic. But with that being said, we're going to kick it off with a clip from the Robert Kiyosaki show.
So the one thing I had a question on, you talked about Executive Order 14067. What is your concern on Executive Order 14067, which was just signed with Biden and company only a few months ago? What is your concern 14067?
Yeah, it has a number of parts, and the thing with executive orders, or for that matter, legislation, I can say you have to read the fine print, and you do, but you have to actually consider the hidden agendas. Like, I can read it, anyone can read it, it's a public document, but what's behind it and where are they going with it? And that's really where the urgency comes in. And it's basically an order that accelerates the U.S. movement towards a central bank digital currency, so-called CBDC. These are happening all over the world. Beijing already has one. They're past the prototype stage. They kind of rolled that out during the Winter Olympics, last February. Believe it or not, the Bahamas has a digital currency. There are a few other countries that have already gone in that direction. Europe is the European Central Bank is very far along. The U.S. and the Federal Reserve, because they print the currency, they understood the importance of it. They were watching it, but they were kind of taking their time, like, hey, we're the biggest payment currency, biggest reserve currency in the world, which the dollar is, and we don't want to race into something if it's not thought out. And they were doing a kind of a joint venture R&D program with MIT. Okay, and they got some experts there, so that seems to make sense. But all of a sudden, they accelerated it, and they said, no, we got to move fast on this, and we got to catch up. And that's what 14067 was about.
So the UK is currently the head of the G7 group. That's the world's most economically advanced countries. And the UK currently chairs the G7 group. Our Chancellor, who does our economy, called Chancellor of the Exchequer, his name's Rishi Sunak. He put out this video saying that what they want to do is bring in this thing called the central banking digital currency. They want to replace fiat paper money with digital money as a competitor to Bitcoin and crypto money, right? But instead of being decentralized currency, it will be controlled by a government. It's digital currency, but controlled centrally through the banks, Bank of England. So instead of having a bank account with whatever, HSBC or Bank of America, you'll have a bank account directly in the American context with the Fed. in the UK directly with the Bank of England. You have a personal bank account and you're given digital money in that bank account. These are called central banking digital currencies. The Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK has already announced their intention to do this as the G7 group. And these, if you look up...
this sounds terrifying.
If you look up the Telegraph newspaper...
Central bank digital currency, is that the one down below?
Digital currency should be programmable. See that one there? Yeah? Now, what they're doing is they're saying, you know, everyone knows that with inflation at over 5%, it's now 5.4%, right? Our fiat money, the paper money, is increasingly becoming worthless, and we're headed towards a big disaster. The Fed wants to raise interest rates. But we're in so much debt that if you raise interest rates, people are going to suffer because we're living on debt as Western economies. So they realize that this kind of the lifespan of paper money is fast coming to an end because of the 2008 economic crash in particular. So they're bringing in these central banking digital currencies. Why is that word programmable in there? So what they said in that article, and the Chancellor put a video out saying this as well, they've said that this money that you will earn from work, instead of having paper money, you have this digital money. It's programmable so that you can't buy certain foods, or if you do something that your employer doesn't like, it's all in that article. You won't be able to spend your money. In other words, it's not money. They're vouchers. They're like food vouchers. And they can be programmed so that, like the Chinese social credit system, that if you try and use them on a certain thing, it won't work. You say you want to buy a burger and they want you to buy bugs, which is one of the examples used. If you start to try and buy unhealthy meat, it just won't work. You tap your card, you can't buy the thing because you've met your quota that month of burgers. You have to buy something like a vegan meal.
So it won't just be money in the sense of the way we have dollars or pounds today.
Yeah.
It'll be something that's controlled in terms of your ability to distribute it.
Which is why I'm calling it a voucher. It's a coupon.
But even a coupon, if you have a coupon to buy bread, you can still buy the bread.
Yeah.
Like,
But you can't buy, see that coupon to buy bread, what you can't do is buy a burger with that coupon. It's for bread.
Right.
Yeah?
Right. Do you feel like you're sounding the alarm
Yes.
for people that don't understand what is going on?
So here, I'll put it up for you here, yeah? So there's the video.
The group of the world's 7 most advanced economies, the G7, is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote that could be used alongside...
Right, so that's the guy who runs our economy in the UK. His name's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And here is the article. Bank of England tells ministers to intervene on digital currency programming, yeah? And here's a quote from the article. Digital cash could be programmed to ensure it is only spent on essentials or goods which an employer or government deems to be sensible.
Holy shit.
I'm going to take it one step further for you, Joe, right? So the checkpoint Charlie exists everywhere. They bring in digital banking, central banking digital currencies. You've got a scenario now that you're checking in and out everywhere you go using vouchers that are programmed and you can only spend where you're told you can spend them. There's another word for that, man. That's called the Chinese social credit system. So what they are telling us, and when I say they, who's they? People in power. That's the head of our economy, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, second most powerful person other than the Prime Minister and maybe the Foreign Secretary in the UK, right? He's telling us, I just played it there for you, he's telling us that's what he, as the UK, the head of the G7, want to bring in for the G7. And if I'm speaking to you the way I'm speaking now, and my employer or government, you heard that in the quote directly, yeah, deems me as saying or doing something inappropriate, suddenly I can't actually pay to come here and speak to you anymore. My digital currency won't even pay for the ticket because it will be known that I'm coming to speak to you. Sorry, your vouchers don't allow you to purchase that ticket to go and speak to Joe.
And this is where we get into the kind of censorship that we see in social media that is not... You can't have that kind of censorship with the First Amendment in normal discourse. But you can have that kind of censorship if you've developed a digital platform that distributes information, but it's a private company.
Yeah.
So think about what money is, where you can spend it on whatever you want, versus this digital currency, which is essentially controlled.
Welcome back to Unfiltered. Listen, I've been warning you over and over, and now the Fed's saying the quiet part out loud. They want a digital currency. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the biggest surveillance tool you will ever see in human history. They're now saying the quiet part out loud about the creation of a central bank digital currency. Take a listen.
So it would not be anonymous. It would not be an anonymous bearer instrument. We would be looking to balance privacy protection with identity verification, which has to be done, of course, in today's traditional banking system.
I mean, you just heard him say it. You don't have to listen to me. Joining me now is cryptocurrency expert and the author of Undressing Bitcoin, Leah Halper. Leah, thanks so much for joining us. You know, you've been sounding the alarm about these central bank digital currencies for a while. Me as well. It's a big concern. This is the ultimate surveillance tool, isn't it?
Absolutely, and anonymity isn't even the worst of our problems. The worst of our problems is the fact that it's going to be programmable. Because it is digital, it means the money can be programmed to be spent in any way in which the central bank or the government decides. So one of my particular concerns is the World Economic Forum, because they're talking about implementing a carbon allowance. Now, this means each individual will be given a certain amount of, whether it's credit or whatever it is, carbon that they are allowed to emit. And how do they implement that? Through a central bank digital currency. So if I buy too many plane tickets, or if I buy too much meat, because those things are all supposedly very bad for the environment, my money when I go to fill up my car could then be declined. So now they're literally controlling what we can and can't do with our money. It's also important to realize that the money can expire. So during times of economic uncertainty, central banks love to print lots and lots of money, which causes inflation. But we could get to a point where they say, instead of printing money, guys, you have to spend at least 10% of your savings in the next 3 months. If you don't spend that money in the next 3 months, then that money is going to expire. And if you can't save money, well, then you can't build long-lasting generational wealth. You're always going to be a slave to the system. And, I don't think people really understand the severity of this. Money is literally the energy which fuels your life. If you don't have freedom of money, you don't have freedom of anything. Dan, I know you talk about the Second Amendment. If they don't need to necessarily get rid of the Second Amendment, but they can just say they can program your money so that you can't actually go and buy a gun. So again, it really is the most tyrannical form of surveillance we will ever see. When they control the money, they control the world.
Okay, I want to segue into FTX real quick, because I do believe this is going to play a role in the attempted rollout of the central bank digital currency. Now, here's a tweet from Eric Matheny, and he says, U.S. tax dollars went to Ukraine in the form of military and humanitarian aid. Ukraine partnered with FTX and invested heavily. The founder, CEO at FTX, was second largest donor to Democrat Party PACs candidates, second only to, and I can't say the name on YouTube, so I'm just going to say SOAR, and then of course that ends with OS. FTX was the intermediary for money laundering. Now I want to get into another tweet, which is a response from Elon Musk. He's responding to Will Manitis, who says SBF donating $40 million to not go to jail for stealing $10 billion plus is one of the highest ROI trades of all time. Elon Musk responds with, that's just the publicly disclosed number. His actual support of Dem elections is probably over $1 billion. The money went somewhere, so where did it go? All right, this is getting interesting. I'm going to now go into a clip from Tucker Carlson.
So all we can ask really is who is benefiting from all of this? Well, we know that the Democratic Party benefited. As we told you, Sam Bankman-Fried donated $40 million to Democrats this cycle. That's more than any other donor apart from Soros. Then he pledged another $1 billion for the next election, $1 billion in one election, because that's democracy. He wasn't doing this in private. He was bragging about it. And then he was going on in public about how politicians, Democratic politicians, were begging him for money. Watch this.
So how do you find political fundraisers? They come to you directly? Is it easy to get to you and say, we need this money for this candidate? And what type of candidates do you tend to support?
Oh, yeah. Well, if I pulled out my phone here and just looked at my last 10 text messages, about half of them are going to be people asking for, politicians asking for contributions.
So why were you telling us this in public? And by the way, if you're shaking like a naked man in a snowstorm in the middle of an interview, maybe there's something wrong with you. Send that boy another $1 billion. So, of course, politicians love the guy because he was just a cash spigot, and that's what they want most. But where were the regulators? Because there is a government that's supposed to be independent of office holders, a regulatory state that keeps Ponzi's from happening. Where were they? Well, Sam Bankman-Fried was himself invited to Washington to consult on crypto regulations. And then he posed for a picture with Maxine Waters, who's the head financial regulator in the Congress. And then the Washington Post, which is the hometown newspaper of government, did no reporting on his actual business. They just wrote a puff piece about how cool is it that the guy with funky hair who can't sit still and sleeps on a beanbag is getting super rich. How did he pull this scam? How did he do that? But no one benefited long-term from FTX's collapse or will benefit more than government regulators. They are pointing to FTX and demanding more control over cryptocurrency and ultimately the end of the cash economy. Why do we think they're going to do that? Because they're already working on it. SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce said this week that the demise of XTS could be a, quote, catalyst for more regulation. So why should you worry about that? Well, because as we saw in Canada last year, crypto is a huge problem for governments. Governments can't control, ideally, cryptocurrency. You can't freeze someone's personal cold wallet with crypto in it if you don't like what they say. So what does this have to do with the collapse of FTX? Well, it turns out that Sam Bankman-Fried's girlfriend, Caroline Ellison, has a lot of connections to regulators. In fact, the biggest regulator of all in this country. Her father, Glenn, is an MIT professor who worked at that university alongside, drumroll please, Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, which is in charge of cryptocurrency regulation. FTX's general counsel used to work with Gensler on the Commodities Future Trading Commission. Now Gensler is about to get a lot more power. So this thing swells to unsustainable size and inevitably implodes. It collapses, and that collapse is used for a pretext to do what they've been planning to do all along. So it probably shouldn't shock you that right after FTX's collapse, every major bank in this country announced a new partnership with the New York Fed to establish a new digital currency. Oh, digital currency, the one they can regulate and control. Citigroup, Wells Fargo, MasterCard, HSBC, all working on a 12-week digital dollar pilot. The Fed describes this project as a regulated liability network. So what does this mean long term? Well, if they have control of your money because it's digital, you can't stash it under your bed. If they don't like what you say, they can turn it off and you're impoverished.
Okay, I'm going to play a video now from a woman named Catherine Austin Fitts. And she's fantastic. She's been out there, very vocal, speaking out against central bank digital currencies and where all of this is leading to. I love her passion. And anyways, I'm just going to play just a clip from a video that she just recently had posted. But I'm also going to make sure that on my YouTube video in the description that I include a link to this entire video of hers. And I'm also going to make sure that I include links to all the other clips that you see in this video that I'm putting together. But anyways, here is Catherine Austin Fitts.
So I want to flesh out your two choices, because we can take action for freedom now, or we can stay comfortable and convenient. And I want to show you what those two options look like. If we don't choose freedom now, you heard a very good presentation from Arno Wellens about CBDC. For many, many years, we've seen digital technology move to build a corral, fences around each of us, digital fences of control, surveillance systems, systems that influence, propaganda. And as they come up, it's like a herd of cattle who have fences coming up around them. So think of us as having 3 fences around each one of us. And what CBDC and digital IDs and vaccine passports will do is they will snap into place a 4th fence. And when that fence snaps into place, we are locked down financially and digitally. I call it digital concentration camps. This technology can turn our homes, our cars, and our communities literally into digital concentration camps. When I say that, people don't believe that the vision is this dark, but I want to show you 3 videos to give you a sense of what this feels like. The first video is Augustine Carson's, who is the he's the general manager of the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. Who here knows who the BIS is? So this is the central bank of central banks. 63 central banks are members of the BIS from Basel, Switzerland. The rarest thing in the world is to see a central bank banker tell you the truth. Now you're going to get to see a central banker tell you the truth, a very rare moment.
Our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. And there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
What he just told you is if you're not allowed to buy chocolate, your money won't work to buy chocolate. If you're not allowed to go more than 5 kilometers from your home, your car or your money won't work more than 5 kilometers from your home. And those rules can be dictated and controlled at a phenomenally central level. We're talking about the end of sovereignty. So this is taxation without representation. If I want to double taxes and just take it out of your account, no problem. The nominee for Office of Controller of Currency in the United States last year, fortunately, she wasn't voted into the position. She wrote an article for the Vanderbilt Law Review and published it and said, it's no problem dealing with inflation. You just freeze everybody's bank accounts because with CBDC, you can do that.
So I got to be honest, when I watch clips like that, I can't help but to want to curse. And I'm not someone that really curses very much, but there is no way that and I'm sure most of us, it should be all of us, will want to give up basically our sovereignty to these central bankers to where they have full control over our lives. You know, they could dictate where we can spend our money. They can lock us down, you know, within a 10, 20 mile radius of our home. So if we travel somewhere, our money doesn't work. They can choose how much meat we could purchase. They can choose how many vacations we can go on. You know, somebody commented, you know, where they might limit us to, you know, one international flight every 3 years or something ridiculous like that. This is not the future that any of us want. So I really respect people in this space that are speaking up and educating people, because it's really going to come down to an educated population standing up and saying no. And I do believe this is our window of opportunity. I like to think of the control of money, which is what we've been under for our entire lives, but the people who have control of it, I like to think of it as, you know, in terms of football. Right now, we're at this window of time where that football is being fumbled. And who ends up in control of this moving forward all depends on who's able to pick up that ball and hang on to it. And right now, the people who've been in power, they don't want to give up that control. It's not going to be easy. So with that being said, there's a clip that's from the Joe Rogan show where they compare this to the printing press and what happened in that time period, because governments had, in a sense, a similar reaction to this technology that was very disruptive. It was very disruptive to their control. So here's this clip, and then I've got actually a surprise that I want to announce after this next clip.
Technology disrupts power structures. It always has. Printing and its invention was a new technology. What happened when they invented the printing press? The power structures who up until that point were reading the Bible for you and were telling you that you've got to pay this priest X amount of favors and he'll forgive you your sins. And that became a bribery system, right? Which is what Martin Luther was so upset about when he pinned his thesis to the wall. The printing press disrupted that power dynamic because people could read the Bible for themselves. And they began realizing that the power structures were manipulating what was written to control people. Now, nobody in hindsight is going to argue that printing and its invention is a bad thing for humanity. But at the time, it led to war. It led to the 30 Years' War in Europe, because it disrupted power so much that people began rising up, and it led to this 30-year period of war, which eventually led to the Reformation, and the rest is history, right? What's today's Gutenberg press? The internet. The decentralization of information, and then because of that, the decentralization of currency in the form of crypto is disrupting power. Because the way that after the revolution of the Reformation and the printing press, control was still possible, though obviously not to that level, which is why we no longer have those absolute monarchies. But control in a nation-state context was still possible to an extent because the money supply was controlled. Now, what's happening is that the invention of the internet, with the decentralization of information, and in particular here, the decentralization of currency in the form of cryptocurrencies, is disrupting those power hierarchies, and it's leading to this conflict now. And we're in a moment. When the printing press was invented, the powers that be needed to try and hold on to that power as the 30 Years' War kicked off. They eventually lost it. But to hold on to it, they became very brutal because they were losing their grip on power. Today, to have the infrastructure in place that you can have a checkpoint Charlie society, so that when the central banking digital currencies are in place, that infrastructure is already there because people were so scared they voluntarily allowed you to put that in place, so that you can maintain your grip on power, because what's coming around the corner is the decentralization of everything, of media, therefore of narrative, and of course remember, whoever defines the truth gets to define reality. Decentralization of the economy through crypto. You no longer have the power to define the story and control the money supply. So the powers that be, who are losing that power, need to clamp down. They're clamping down on their own children, because we are people who are born of the West. So it's an internal civil war in a hybrid war context over truth and over information. Centralization versus decentralization. It's no longer about left or right. It's about up versus down. It's about power versus those who don't have power.
Do you think if there was no cryptocurrency, if there was no Bitcoin or any of the other crypto coins, that they would attempt to do some sort of digital currency? Do you think that this is a response to the understanding that that decentralized digital currency is eventually going to take over, or has gained far more momentum than they ever anticipated?
I think so. And also decentralized media, because you can't control the narrative.
Right.
Now, we will get out of this because ultimately it's a numbers game. And ultimately, in times like this, you end up fighting against your own sons, right? It's those in power fighting their own people. And eventually, the people, are, by sheer numbers, end up becoming the people in power, right? So in the long run, we may well end up in a decentralized world, which will be much better. But as I say, that to get there, we have to get through this period of those in power attempting to hold on to that power.
I completely agree. At the end of all this, we're heading towards a world of decentralization. But in the short run, we have to deal with a bunch of globalists who want to push us into their central bank digital currency system. This is something I'm sure that they've been wanting for quite some time, and they're panicking because I don't see it happening. Right now, so many people are waking up to this, and I just don't see how they're going to be able to pull it off. And I've got 2 more videos towards the end of this whole video that I'm putting together for you, which dives a little bit more deeper into it. But before I get to that, I want to read this tweet from Mark Moss, and he says, "We are witnessing the end of globalization. The world we have known is ending, and we can see it happening right before our eyes. My 3 cycles thesis tells us right now, the pendulum is swinging from centralization to decentralization, and it looks like this." Now, if you're watching the video, then you're going to see the graph that he's referring to. If you're not, I recommend checking it out. It's very interesting. But also, since we're on this topic, there is a book that, from what I've heard, everybody at the CIA, everybody working at the White House, this is a book that is basically strongly, I don't know if it's required, but pretty much everybody in those positions of power read it. It's called The Fourth Turning. And we are right at one of those moments, which is exactly what Mark Moss is showing in this graph, where the whole world as we know it is about to shift. So we are getting out of globalization and centralization because it's really the root of all of our problems. And now we have a technology with blockchain that can allow us to exchange value between each other without the need of a central bank, which is why I believe they're panicking and they're pushing this agenda as quickly as they can because they see themselves losing grip. But anyways, I said there was going to be a surprise, and this is it. So this is a website that I built. It's called CryptoBackup.com. And I spent about 5 months doing a lot of research on what ended up becoming this product, which is a stainless steel crypto capsule, which helps protect your private keys. I know a few people who had their house actually catch on fire. And if you have 12 words written on a piece of paper or 24 words on a piece of paper and they burn, then you can basically end up losing all your cryptocurrency. Or if your house is flooded, same thing. You want to make sure that you're protecting your 12 or 24 words at all cost. And of course, with everything happening in the world today, with FTX, Celsius, and all these exchanges that have gone down, you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping your cryptocurrency within your own possession. So I designed this. I had to buy a few different 3D printers to actually create some of these pieces. But I designed this so that people who are not comfortable swinging a hammer and holding a metal stamp, technically you could do this one-handed if you wanted to, which is what I'm showing in this video right here. But for me, I use both hands. It's just quicker. It's more comfortable. But I wanted to make this universal for everybody and easy to use. And in the end, this is what it looks like. You'll see on the left, crypto is the word that I stamped in here. If it's a 12-word phrase, you'll just number it 1 through 12. And then also include a black enamel marker. So if you wanted to, you could actually paint this black. You just simply put the enamel black paint on top, give it 3 minutes to dry, and you just wipe it off with a damp paper towel or with this lemon wipe that I included in the kit. So that's it. But the surprise I have is I'm actually going to give away 3 of these for free. And so if you are interested, just click on Order Now and click on Add to Cart. Go to Checkout. And then what you're going to do is type in WTF, only WTF, and it's going to drop the price down to free. The only thing you'll end up paying is shipping, which is like $8 and change. But the total product will go from $109 to free. Now, there's only 3 of them that are available like that, and 1 per customer. So if you missed that, I'm also offering 25% off to everybody that watches my videos. I'm not going to advertise this discount code anywhere else. So if you're one of my viewers, you type in WTF25 and this will drop it by 25%. So that's it. This is the surprise I wanted to show everybody. This project was a lot of fun, something that I became very passionate about creating. If you want to know a little bit about my story, just click on the Our Story tab and shares a little bit of my history. Going back to 2013, I've been in crypto for a while. So I've seen Mt. Gox collapse. I've seen a lot. So anyways, I'll wrap this up, but CryptoBackup.com, type in WTF in the discount box for free. 3 of them are available, or WTF25 for 25% off. And that one I'm probably not going to discontinue. So everybody that watches my videos, I'm going to offer 25% off. Anyways, I'm going to go back to this video, and the next thing up is going to be from X22 Report, and I do believe that he's got a pretty good grasp on what's happening right now and where this is going to go. So up next is X22.
This is exactly what the World Economic Forum, the private West Central Bank, this is what they want. They want the system destroyed. They want small businesses destroyed. They want the country to be built into a third world country. And if you actually look at what they're doing, this is exactly what they're trying to do. And you can see it in all different places. Now, once again, remember, they need to do this to bring us into their new system. They need to destroy the old system to bring us into the new system. And the only way to do this is to destroy everything about the old system. And that's what they're doing right now. They thought they had the pandemic to do this. They thought they'd be able to destroy all the small businesses, keep everyone at home. But this didn't work out. And remember, the central bank, the World Economic Forum, they're moving forward with their plan. Right now, India's central bank is going to start retail of the central bank digital currency pilot on December 1st. Now, remember, they didn't want to really do this without a cover story. They really didn't want to do this without some type of an event. Now they're doing it out in the open. And now people are going to see what the true central bank digital currency is going to be and how it's going to be used. Because once countries start to implement this, just like they implemented the vaccine passport, just like they implemented the COVID camps, people are going to see the true agenda. The same thing is going to happen with the central bank digital currency, just like we saw with PayPal. PayPal all of a sudden came out and said, listen, if you spread misinformation or disinformation, we're going to fine you. Well, what do you think the central bank digital currency is going to be? You think they're going to fine you, or they're just going to shut down your account and limit you on what you can spend until you change your ways? This is what people are going to see in all of these countries, because they're getting ready to do the same thing they did with the vaccine passport that they're going to do with central bank digital currency. And I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see Australia, New Zealand, the same exact players start to push this. And the people are going to start to recognize, wait a minute, we can't even protest. Look what happened out in Canada. They froze the people's bank accounts. And people are going to start to really see this. And remember, once people see this, the people are going to make a completely different decision. Now, remember, everything that is happening right now, they need to remove certain individuals that are pushing alternative currencies. And if you go back in time and you go back to the Titanic, and I remember there was a Q post about the Titanic, about individuals on this ship that were trying to stop the central bank system, the Federal Reserve, from coming into existence. And it seems that these people needed to get rid of certain individuals. And all of a sudden we had the Titanic sink, which is very interesting. And now we're starting to see the same exact things, because we do have alternative currencies out there. And there are certain individuals that are saying we should never go to the central bank digital currency. We should actually use gold. We should actually use silver. We should actually use Bitcoin, or maybe a combination of all of them. Now, what's very interesting, and Candace Owens put this out on Twitter, crypto millionaire Nikolai died mysteriously in a drowning after tweeting that he feared the CIA and Mossad were going to murder him. Now, 2 more crypto billionaires have died in mysterious circumstances. Why is this happening? Right when the central bank digital currency is starting to be pushed out there. I do believe that this is all connected. Then she said, this man is now dead. He was a crypto millionaire named Nikolai. He died in a mysterious drowning in Puerto Rico 4 hours after sending this tweet. He was fully clothed and had his wallet on him. These are the facts. So this individual knew that they were coming after him. And it's funny how, not really funny, but how these millionaires who dabbled in cryptocurrency, they're being picked off one by one. Isn't that interesting? So I wonder what they knew that these individuals didn't want to come out. Now, it could be other things, but it's just interesting that these individuals are crypto millionaires. And I do believe they need to remove all obstacles as they move forward. But the biggest obstacle is we, the people. The biggest obstacle is the people around the world. And just like the vaccine passports, they will never be able to get this off the ground. The only way, most likely, they could get this off the ground was if there was a disaster situation, like a war. If there was death and destruction all over the place and people were dying and the infrastructure was completely gone, people would not care about what they were doing. They would just care about, where am I going to get food? Is there any running water? Is there any electric? My family, where are they? Or if there's a pandemic and everyone was locked down and the global economic system was shut down, people would be worrying about supply chains, about food and other necessities that they need. Well, they don't have this right now. Everything's out in the open. When they tried to introduce the vaccine passports, this was completely out in the open, and it completely failed. Yes, they're always going to try. They're never going to give up. The same thing with the central bank digital currency. You see, the people, they need to experience all this. The people need to see exactly what they're trying to do. They can't have noise. They can't have a cover story. The people need to see exactly what the World Economic Forum, what the central bank actually wants to do. And as people watch this and the world watches this, This will never be able to get off the ground. The people eventually, it might take some time, but the people eventually will push back. And we've seen it throughout history. And this is no different. The people, in the end, they're going to make the final decision.
Okay, we're down to the final video, which is a video from Cliff High. So I believe Cliff High's got a pretty good idea historically what happened to lead us up to where we are today, and a pretty good idea of where this is going to go and how long it's going to take to get through all this. I really like his take. The only issue is he curses quite a bit. I don't blame him, but you'll notice that I will be editing out his curse words because I'm trying to keep this video clean. Okay, here's Cliff High.
Discussion about the end of the Fed. So it has taken since 1913 until, so well over 100 years, until today, basically, for the Federal Reserve to conquer most of the planet. So the Khazarians have conquered most of the planet through deception and infiltration and insurgency. And they've been pretty good at that, right? We've seen it over and over and over again. They don't really have any other plan. This is the only thing they know how to do. If the populace is awake to it being done, it doesn't happen to them. If they're asleep, as has been the case of most of the normies these last 80 plus years, then they get taken over. And we're at that point now. The Khazarians have conquered the planet, the Khazarian central bank structure, what they call Babylonian money magic, and it's given them their whole power. So basically, the world is put, all of the humans on the planet, including the Chinese, we can exclude the Russians, but so basically the world is paying the Khazarians a tithe, through inflation and so on. So they've been stealing about half of everything that the people of the world have produced. And that's why these are so mega rich. Undeservedly, right? Because it's an immoral, illegal, hidden system that they get made legal by subverting and blackmailing and murdering people in legislative and authority positions, and then they replace them, and then they get what they want done legally, right? But it's not moral, it's not law, it's not ethical. It's simply that they got a bill passed that allows them to do this, and there's a central bank, it takes you over, no one really thinks much about it, and in the end you become beggars and your life is worse because they steal from you in such huge amounts. So this is why the system is collapsing now, is because the way that the system works, they don't really have control over it. They can't control inflation. It has to do with the theft of the money, creating all this fake money, and passing it out. Now, bear in mind that the system itself is evil. So we have X amount of, quote, dollars that are produced by the Federal Reserve. And then it turns out we have about, I think I've had it quoted to me that it's about 14,000 times more money is out there in the form of derivatives than there is in, quote, official money. That is to say, the money that they've actually, put on their books, so to speak, right? Which they don't even keep books on it anymore, or ever really. They've never been audited. Because they control the system, they never will be audited. So anyway, so we can discuss the evilness of the whole system and how it's all terrible and how it's hurt us for all of these years, and your life has been miserable, and probably most of the bad things that have happened to you, other than, getting smacked in the face or, driving over a nail or something. But most of the politically bad things that have happened to you have been as a result of the deep state, which is funded by the Khazarian Mafia's system, through bribery, through extortion, and so on, but also through gift. So this is part of it, is that a lot of the rich in your society, it doesn't matter what country you're in, a lot of the rich in your society are rich because they're close enough to the central bank that the central bank actually gives them money. They don't need to have anything. They don't have to buy the money. They just get big chunks of it because they're friends with the central bankers. And it spreads a web. It allows for things like bribery and blackmail and all of these other forms of erosion of the moral authority of the social order. And that's why we're at where we're at. And that's why the United States is repeating the playbook that affected Germany from the 1914 onward. So Germany didn't want to go into World War I. It was not because some Archduke got shot, but it was because their system was coming online and they needed the cover story. They needed to steal vast quantities of money, and so they needed something to distract everybody while they stole it, as they set up the banks and so on, right? Anyway, so our central bank is imploding because it is the end of the system, and they have been deprived of a giant, huge distraction for everybody. So they don't have a big distraction. They do not have the people of the planet looking into war. They don't have them. They're trying to get them afraid of nuclear war. They're trying to get them afraid of all of these different things. They're trying to do anything they can to distract you from the end of their system and allow them to set it up once again and start all over again with them still in charge. Now, there's a lot to suggest that this will not happen, that we're actually watching the end of the central bank system as it implodes without a cover story. So there's no giant war. There hasn't been an assassination of an archduke, although they tried to kill Imran Khan yesterday in Persia. And so they're trying this shit all the time. They've got to have a giant world war for their plan to work. Absent that, they're in a real world of hurt because we're going to be watching them, all of us are going to be watching them, as their system collapses. And as it collapses, it's not good for you. You're going to get really pissed about it all and will be motivated to take action. And they don't want that motivation. Above all, they don't want that motivation. Now, in a simple description, I think that the central bank is going to be blocked and foiled at every opportunity to reestablish itself and to get out from under the liability of what they've created. Okay, so I don't think they'll be able to get away with it.
Well, you've reached the end of the video. I hope this information was helpful to at least give you an idea of what central bank digital currencies are and basically what we're up against, because obviously this isn't a future that we really want. But in the meantime, this is what it looks like we're going to have to deal with, at least in 2023. And we'll see how long this goes, because I know I don't want to put up with it. There's absolutely no need for a central bank digital currency. There is need for a gold-backed sound currency peer-to-peer, and I'm hoping that we will see something like that that's developed. Our own currency we use today, we don't own it. Our government borrows it from a private bank that calls itself the Federal Reserve, and they're not federal. They have no reserves. And honestly, I'm ready for a change, but definitely not this central bank digital currency type of change that currently they're going to try and push on us. So we'll see what happens next year. But in the meantime, I hope you all stay well, stay blessed, and I look forward to making the next video. Oh, but please feel free to give me some feedback in the comments or reach out to me on Facebook. And I will be making more videos, so if you have any suggestions, please shoot them my way. All right, see you guys. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take the letters from here and spell your first word. In this example, I'm spelling the word crypto. Now you're going to take the crypto jig, and you're going to take the stainless steel washer and place it into the bottom of it. Then you're going to take a piece of blue tape, which is included in the kit, and you're going to tape the stainless steel washer to the bottom of the crypto jig. Then you're going to place this into the crypto block. Now, you're going to take the very first letter, which is the letter C, and you're going to have this letter facing outward towards you. Then, you're going to take your hammer, hit it 3 times. Then you're going to move it to the next spot, put in the letter R, hit it 3 times. Then you're going to move it to the next spot, put in the letter Y, hit it 3 times. And of course, you're going to hit it harder than that, but I'm just using this as an example. And you're going to repeat the process until you spelt your entire word, which in this case is crypto. Then, of course, the last thing you're going to do is put the numbers at the very top.